In 1935, a woman named Ruth had $1.58 to feed her family for an entire week. This is exactly what she bought, and exactly how she made it work. 5:30 a.m. The fire. The first problem of every morning in 1935 has nothing to do with food. It's the fire. The kitchen stove went out overnight. Before coffee, before breakfast, before anything, Ruth restarts it. Bare hands, cold kitchen, dark outside. She's 33 years old, and she looks 45. Not bad luck, just 1935. Her husband, Gene, works at a rubber plant for $18 a week. 1 in 5 Americans has no job at all right now. So Gene, having work, puts this family in the category called fortunate. After rent and utilities, they have roughly $9 to $11 left for everything else. Food, clothing, medicine, school supplies, everything. Ruth puts the coffee on. Not real coffee. She stretches it with chicory. It tastes different. You get used to it. She has a list to write before the children wake up. Today is shopping day. 7 a.m. The list. The shopping list in 1935 is not what you think. Ruth doesn't write down what she wants. She writes down what she can spend and works backward. This week, she has $4.50 for groceries. 5 people, 7 days. That's less than 10 cents per person per day. She writes from memory because when every cent counts, you memorize prices the way other people memorize faces. Here's what $1.58 buys in 1935. 24 pounds of flour for 59 cents. 2 pounds of dried beans for 9 cents. 10 pounds of potatoes for 23 cents. 1 pound of lard for 10 cents. A small piece of salt pork for 15 cents. It won't be eaten directly. It will flavor everything else all week. Oatmeal, cabbage, milk, eggs. Total, $1.58. She has $2.92 left. Some for thread. The kids' clothes need mending. Some for Jimmy's shoes, which have a hole she's been stuffing with cardboard for 2 weeks. She folds the list, wakes the oldest. They walk to the store. 9 a.m. The store. The grocery store in 1935 has no shopping carts, no self-service aisles. You walk up to a counter and tell the clerk what you need. He gets it, wraps it, writes it down. Ruth doesn't browse. Browsing is for people with options. There are no expiration dates in 1935. None. Ruth knows which vegetables are on the edge by sight and smell. The clerk, Mr. Hendricks, sometimes sets aside produce that's going soft, sells it cheaper to customers he knows need it. Ruth has a quiet arrangement with him. She never asks directly. He never announces it. There's a dignity to poverty in 1935 that requires both people to pretend certain things aren't happening. She pays $1.61, a penny over. Eggs went up this week. She notes it. Next week, she adjusts. Jimmy carries the flour. She carries everything else. 6 blocks home. 11 a.m. Nothing wasted. The beans go into water to soak, 8 hours before they're edible. Ruth planned this yesterday. In 1935, meal planning isn't a lifestyle trend. It's the difference between eating Thursday and not eating Thursday. The entire week is already decided. Beans and cornbread Monday and Tuesday. The second day stretched with water and a potato. Potatoes and cabbage Wednesday. Eggs Thursday if money holds. Friday, whatever's left. Sunday, the best meal of the week. Always. Nothing is thrown away. Potato peels go into stock. Bacon grease is saved in a can by the stove. Stale bread becomes pudding, or croutons, or soup thickener. Ruth's mother called it cooking from scratch. It meant you start with almost nothing and you make it into something. The skill required to do this, the planning, the memory, the physical work, has no official name. Nobody pays for it. Nobody counts it. She checks the beans, still soaking. She sits down for 4 minutes. She counts them.
2 p.m. Bread. Store-bought bread costs 10 cents a loaf in 1935. Ruth makes 2 loaves for 3 cents. She does this twice a week. The math is simple. The labor is not. She kneads the dough for 10 minutes by hand. Not because the recipe says to, because her hands know when it's right. Her mother taught her. Her mother's mother taught her mother. This knowledge passed hand to hand through 3 generations of women who couldn't afford to get it wrong. While the dough rises, she mends Jimmy's school shirt. The collar is fraying. She cuts it off, flips it, re-sews it. Worn side in. Nobody will see it. Another season. This is the mathematics of 1935. Time is cheap. Money is not. If it costs money to replace and time to fix, you fix it. Every time, without question. The bread goes in at 3:30. By 4, the house smells like the one good thing about today. 5:30 p.m. Jean comes home. Jean comes in smelling of rubber and sweat. He's tired the specific way 1935 men are tired. Not just the body, but the weight of knowing the job could end. 3 men laid off at the plant this month. He doesn't say this at home. Ruth knows anyway. He washes his hands, asks how the shopping went. $1.61, she says. He nods. A beat of silence. Then their 4-year-old Bess runs in and grabs his leg, and the moment dissolves into something easier. Dinner is bean soup. Ruth made enough for 2 nights. She cut the cornbread into 6 pieces, 1 each, plus 1 extra she quietly slides onto Jean's plate. He needs the calories. He would argue if she named it. She doesn't name it. Their daughter Clara wants everyone to look at her drawing. Jean looks at it the way fathers do when they want a child to believe their work matters. It does matter. He just can't say why out loud without his voice doing something he doesn't want it to do. 9 p.m. After everyone is asleep. The children are in bed. Jean is asleep in the armchair. Ruth checks the stove, banked for the night, puts the beans in a covered pot. Half a loaf of bread left. That's tomorrow's lunch. She turns off the kitchen light, stands at the window. Outside, neighbors' lights are going off one by one. Early to bed, electricity costs money. Ruth opens the tin box, $2.31 remaining. Jimmy's shoes still need fixing. Not this week, maybe next. She writes it down, folds the paper, puts it back. Here's what she has never said out loud. She is good at this. Genuinely, remarkably good at the specific skill of keeping 5 people alive on almost nothing. It takes intelligence, memory, physical endurance, and a creativity that has no name and no salary and will leave no record. In 10 years, things will be better, and most people will forget how hard this was. But tonight, in this kitchen, with $2.31 and half a loaf and beans for tomorrow, Ruth did what she does every day. She kept them. 28 million American families lived this version of Tuesday in 1935. The flour bin, the tin box, the cardboard in the shoe, the 4 minutes sitting down. They didn't call it surviving. They called it getting by. The difference matters because one of those phrases has defeat in it. And these people didn't feel defeated. They felt tired. There's a difference, and it's worth